Decluttering the Strategic Space, as we've called our podcast, is meant to discuss important strategic issues and separate the wheat from the chaff and put it across in layman's terms. Why is there a need for such a podcast? Well, with a lot of information out in various media formats, especially misinformation, we plan to put things in simple terms, thus decluttering the space and making it easy to understand for people in the country. I am Rear Admiral Kapil Gupta, an Indian Navy veteran with over 3 decades of experience in the Indian Navy, primarily in the operations arena. Along with me will be my colleague and friend, Commodore Venugopal, with another veteran of over 3 decades experience in the Navy. He has lectured in several international symposia, has also written a lot of papers on maritime strategic issues. In the first episode, we attempt to address issues emanating out of Op Sindoor. With this, I welcome Commodore Venugopal to this show. With a,
Yeah.
with a fair bit of dust having settled, we thought it would be
Hmm.
appropriate to declutter some issues emanating from Op Sindoor. And therefore,
Uh,
we will start with post the Pahalgam killing of 26 Indians. Uh, what was the likely directive to the military, and whether there was a political will to
hmm,
do what we had planned to do? Venu.
hmm. Yeah, I think post Pahalgam, India exhibited a fair degree of political will to deal with the perpetrators of terror. Uh, the time and the space was chosen after deliberations. All aspects were completely were, I would say, calculated before attempting the military operation.
So tell me, the Prime Minister made a statement following the Pahalgam event that he had given a free hand to the armed forces to deal with the situation as they felt appropriate. What do you think was the aim of this message?
See, that is I would say a kind of a political clearance for the armed forces to act in a befitting manner uh, with due diligence and due deliberation.
Yeah, to me, it appears that though the Prime Minister gave the freedom to the armed forces to act as as they planned and as they would execute it, but finally, it was basically a message to the armed forces that you put on your thinking cap, do what you want to do in terms of things that may have not been done, as we saw subsequently as things unrolled, that the armed forces did act in a manner different from what they'd done earlier. And the the liberty given to them did not mean that they could do anything. They had to come back to the government, take approval of their plans, that this is what they intend to do. But I'm sure it must have been a very close circle who knew of what was being planned. Would that be right?
That I suppose, is part of the democratic governance, uh, as any military operation will be always under the control of the political establishment, unlike probably dictatorships or autocratic governments.
Yeah, very true. So tell me now, now that we'd planned out the operation and everything was ready, and there was an issue of diplomacy involved in this entire operation as well, because as you know, that no military operation can be successful without the support of a parallel diplomatic initiative, as we've seen in earlier times when we've had our incidents with. May it be with Pakistan or with China. that the diplomacy has supported the operations.
Yeah, you're right on that. Before launching the operation itself, the Ministry of External Affairs had contacted its counterparts in various countries, informed them of the gravity of the situation and what would be India's likely response uh, on to against Pakistan, and sought, or rather, I would say that it was basically as an information to them rather than taking their approval or taking their consent, which I suppose isn't the right way of thinking. Because even in the 1971 operation, if you recall, Mrs. Gandhi had contacted, the then Prime Minister had contacted various governments, especially the United States, and tried to appraise them of the situation that was coming out of the refugees from Bangladesh before launching a military operation.
Yeah, so the diplomacy before the operation as also after the operation was very important. And
Absolutely.
our viewpoint as presented before and our viewpoint as things emanated from the operation was very important to tell the rest of the world. And therefore, do you think that sending of these delegations to over 40, 50 countries with eminent members of parliament and political heads going to various countries to explain our point of view. You think that was a good move?
Overall, I think it was a good move because the delegation consisted of uh, uh, all political parties, representatives from all political parties, different regions, different languages, different religions, to paint the correct picture that what India is. And also, the countries targeted were the permanent members and non-permanent members of Security Council, and also countries were dealing with the financial action task forces, the countries who were members of the financial action task force. So overall, I think it was a good move, and certain perspectives were made clear by the delegations, you know, across the world. Um, and I listened to Jay Panda this morning, and he was very clear in what was the aim of the delegation and how they were able to achieve their objectives. See, this is basically part of track two diplomacy. And it's actually closed door meetings and normally does not come out in the press, the details of the meetings. But then, in an atmosphere like that, where there is no official sanction for the meeting or a proper agenda for the
Delegations.
meeting, the aim was to put across our point of view, which I think the delegations would have succeeded. And I would say that the chosen delegates were also quite eminent figures who had a fair knowledge of, international relations and the political aim of the government.
And also, I think that during this visit of the delegations, the as you said, the places chosen were selected FATF countries and the Security Council countries. So the countries were important. The people who were chosen were also important and appropriate, and the right kind of people were put in each group so that they could go and convey India's view to them. But tell me, and
Also,
sorry,
can I add one more point to it?
yeah,
If you noticed, all the delegations, all the seven delegations contained one ex-Indian Foreign Service official as well,
mhm.
which is also equally important. He may not be a politician, he was not a politician, but then he's able to guide the delegation on the diplomatic overtures and how to go about their task.
True. But this is my view, and I may be wrong. I would like you to correct me if I'm wrong. That this issue of the fact that we were targeting only terrorist camps, did we overplay it? Did we keep dragging it for too long that we have targeted only terrorist camps, and thereafter, after Pakistan responded, then we've gone for the military? Don't you think, when you're planning a military operation, these things, okay, you had planned in certain manner, but need not overplay it. The first day it was okay, but after the first day, continuing to say the same thing that we targeted only this, uh, was it required?
See, the initial approach of the government was to, or the establishment was to target the terror camps, and Pakistan was specifically told that we are targeting the terror camps and we are not targeting any other infrastructure in Pakistan. However, Pakistan responded uh, as against that particular norm of ours and started attacking civilian targets in India. Towards this, we responded by uh, carrying out counterattacks on uh, sources or on infrastructure from where the terror attacks were launched and from where the Pakistan military were launching their aircrafts and drones to carry out attack on Indian installations.
But do you think Pakistan had any other option? Because when we targeted the terror camps, the Pakistan could not have responded to terror camps in India because there aren't any. So they had to choose targets which were civilian, religious places, military. Their targets had to be these. There was no option for
I
them.
agree. I agree with that totally. I agree with that. There are no corresponding targets in India for
Yeah.
which Pakistan could counterattack. So they had to attack the infrastructure, military infrastructure,
So I'm sure in the
and
planning it must have been,
factored in.
they would
Yeah.
have factored these things that they are going
Yeah.
to expect attacks on, though they may
Yeah.
not have, they may not have thought of religious places, but they would certainly have thought of military targets, and possibly some civilian areas to
Yes.
inflict damage. Okay, so we had the 7th of May when we did the attacks, and then there was a counter on the 8th, and then there was a counter to that counter by us on 9th, and then there was a ceasefire. Do you think that the ceasefire timing was right? Do you think we could have extended it by one more day? And as we said that there was no, it was at the request of the Pakistanis, and there was no intervention from any other country, which is fair. But the point that we could, if we had postponed it by one day and given one last strike on the 10th, would have served us better.
Yeah, I agree to a certain extent on that part, what you're saying. That I thought probably the ceasefire was a bit too early to call in. We could have carried out more, destruction on their military infrastructure as it was coming to the fourth day as such. And our attacks were generally successful. But there are a lot of clouds still looming around on, what made India agree to a ceasefire. There are a lot of clouds, there are a lot of, speculations. The recent one which is, surfacing is that the Noor Khan Air Base, had was basically a kind of a base which was housing U.S. Assets which were, which probably would have sustained some damage. And that tacitly would have influenced some kind of uh, intervention from the US to probably request us for a ceasefire. But there again, it's still doubtful as far as I know. After the pullout from Afghanistan, no US military infrastructure uh, was remained in place in Pakistan. So I am a little surprised about this story of Noor Khan. However, I don't want to rule it out completely. because there could have been some kind of a secret agreement between US and Pakistan, which has not surfaced so far. So that could be one, I mean, it's just a question of kind of a speculation from my side, which could have probably made us agree to a ceasefire. Because I thought it was a bit too abrupt, when we are in fairly advantageous position to call off a ceasefire.
See, the strikes that we carried out on the 9th on the military targets of Pakistan was only demonstrative of this fact that we can reach you. Because when we carried out a strike on an airfield, and we punctured the runway at one spot, that one spot, though it may be the middle or the cross section of the runway, it doesn't it can be very quickly repaired, and the aircraft, the airfield can be made operational very quickly. So on the 9th, what we did was a demonstrative strike that we can reach you. And I believe that 10th would have been the ideal to, carry out greater strikes on the same targets and carry out damage, which is sustaining damage. That's my view. I may be wrong.
No,
And the
I agree,
of course
agree,
would
agree
have
with
had
you that,
government would have had more inputs, and
yeah.
decision process would have had better brains to think of all these issues, and then decide on whether they should go in for the ceasefire, whether they should go in for a second strike or not go. So that's what I believe.
Yeah, I agree with you that, we demonstrated our reach.
Mm.
I feel like we can strike you wherever we wish, kind.
Yeah, yeah,
Which was a right message to Pakistan, I'm sure. And we demonstrated that with fair amount of precision,
yeah,
precision guided weapons
yeah.
and accuracy. Yeah, one way of looking at it is that since we have demonstrated that ability on the 10th, we could have taken a step further to inflict more damages. But as you said, there was government would have been aware of some of important inputs that would have probably, given them that insight to to agree to a ceasefire.
So what
The
would have been,
mystery of
sorry,
the
sorry.
US assets notwithstanding. Mm.
Yeah, and there are reports now coming out of Pakistan to say that actually
Yeah.
Nur Khan is a base controlled by the Americans and has nothing to do with the
Yes.
Pakistani Air Force. Reports are now coming out, though they didn't come out initially, but now they've started coming out. So yeah, what you say, maybe so. Only time will tell. So,
Yeah.
what do you think? What do you think would have been the planned end game for this entire operation? And do you think we've achieved the what we'd set out to achieve by this operation?
See, the planned end game would, in such a situation where you are dealing with, terror operation, sorry, terrorist networks, and trying to cripple the terrorist networks across Pakistan. Uh, the end game may be a little ambiguous, but I would say that uh, we probably have achieved a certain degree of what we wish to agree, but definitely we have not been able to achieve the full results of our intended plan. And whether we have, um, achieved our political aim is concerned, I would still say that we have only partly achieved. Because I would say primarily because we have not been able to convince the global community of our actions so far, in the sense that global community still thinks that the uh, issue between India and Pakistan is basically some kind of a bilateral issue, and nobody actually wants to give any kind of take a stand in favor of one country or the other. So considering that, whether we achieved our political aim, I would still go by the answer no. I don't think we have achieved it.
No, and also, the global community has also, taken the line that Pakistan has been taking. This shows the proof. I mean, when you go around and say that the Bombay attack, the Pathankot attack, the all the past terrorist attacks that have happened in India, India has been able to generate adequate, evidence that it has emanated from Pakistan. So there is no question of doubting India. But despite that, the global community still says that India has gone in, or a section of the global community, which probably does not either understand the issue or wishes to take, the side of those forces which tell them to take sides with Pakistan. That India has taken this action, unilateral action, without any proof of having the attacks having emanated from Pakistan, which is very unfortunate. And we can do nothing about it. We can only go and stand on top of the roof and scream and shout and say that, listen, this has been done by them. This is where it's emanating from. And it is their past policy. It is the government's, Pakistan government stated policy to support terrorism in attacks in India. So there is no doubt. It's very
See, terror
unfortunate.
has been an instrument of state policy for Pakistan. That's one part. And as far as the West is concerned, when terror strikes the West, it is terror.
Yeah.
But elsewhere in the world, it is not regarded as terror. And also, one important aspect of this entire operation is that we were not able to capture those terrorists who were involved in the operation because with the lack of security forces in the Pahalgam area, after carrying out the attack on whims and fancies, they could actually carry out the attack and then retreat into the jungles
Yeah.
so fast that there was no question of, or there were no chances of capturing them. Had we had, one of those terrorists captured, we could have got more information to be, supporting our actions. Not that we require any kind of, tick mark from anybody to go to undertake the operation. But then that was a very costly miss in the sense that we were unable to nab those terrorists. That was very, very important and very important, loose thread in this whole game.
Very true. And terrorism and terrorists is like a hydra-headed kind of a animal, which you can kill 100 and then it'll produce another 100. So therefore, if the as you say, is an instrument of state policy, if you eliminate 100 of them, there'll be that many more who will come, and they will continue. Pakistan will continue. It's only a matter of how much time. Between the previous and this one, it took what, 5 6 years. So I'm not sure what kind of a period Pakistan will take to carry out another such miserable attack that they did on us.
See, another thing which I wanted to highlight is that, uh, like we initially claimed that there were five terrorists involved and two were local.
Hmm.
Now, this tour local, we should not have announced all these things on the media
Yeah,
or
very,
made it
very
known to the public, or which was captured by the international community or international channels, which always can say that
They are
terrorism,
homegrown.
they had terror. I mean, they had two people from the local who were involved in this attack. So
Hmm.
that gives us a much I would say, not a very strong wicket, in
Puts us
this
on the
whole
back
game.
foot. Puts us on the
That's
back
right.
foot. Yeah.
We should actually be, we should not be making too many of this information, in the media. uh, on the nature on nationality of the terrorists and all that. Because when you say there are two terrorists from two locally homegrown terror elements in the attack, that is not it does not send the right message across.
Very true. Now that you brought the media in, it would serve us well to curtail the media interaction and to, curtail what is appearing on the media. And also, and I am quite sure that the government is capable of that, of giving a diktat to the media or not to put any unverified information on the in the news channel. It unnecessarily, like for example, they said that some media said that we've bombed Karachi. The Navy's bombed Karachi, little realizing that, as they used to say in the olden days, that an air attack meant a complete war. you know in today's world, the moment there is naval action, that means, some skirmish of some army troops going in or something, one aircraft going and carrying out strikes is not a entire battle. But the moment the navy gets involved, it's a full scale war. And therefore, irresponsible media to have put up to say that, navy has carried out strikes on Karachi was not correct, and the government should have controlled the media. But I want to come back to the point of the CDS going to Singapore for the Shangri-La dialogue and giving this interview over there. Whether that interview was required at all, whether it had the clearance, I'm sure it would have had the clearance of the government. But what would be the level of clearance that he's allowed to give interviews or he's allowed to say what he did? But do you think he served the purpose that was designed by that interview? Don't you think that the chief of air operations, his statement in one of the press briefs that all pilots are home should have been adequate?
Yeah, I agree with you that the the Army, Air Force, and Naval spokespersons briefing would have been enough, and we should not have actually pushed it further by having CDS making a kind of an ambiguous statement in Singapore during in the sidelines of Shangri-La dialogue. But I have a feeling that the there were losses. We no idea how many aircrafts, probably a minimum number of losses, which was coming out in all media, international and national media as well, through different sources and articles. That government wanted to uh, have somebody make a casual mention of it on the sidelines of an international conference so that uh, it is something is given and yet not given in that kind of a fashion, which CDS, probably handled that interview. One really cannot comment on that as to how effective did he handle. But I still feel that uh, this issue could have been nicely sidetracked by the CDS by giving a little more ambiguous statement in this regard
I agree. And
instead of.
I agree. Air Marshal Bharti's two statements. One was that all pilots are home, and secondly, he said that in an operation there will be losses. That was enough. And if, as I understand, 120 aircraft participated in this operation over 3 days, if 120 aircraft participated in whatever support roles or primary roles or whatever, uh, if you have 2-3% of loss, in no great shakes. And I
Yeah,
mean, it's bound to have. There could have been a technical flaw itself. Forget
yeah, yeah.
hit by enemy fire. We could have had a technical flaw.
And by bringing in some tactics into it, I think
Yeah,
he made the that situation a little more vague
I think
in his
I think he
answer.
also put the Air Force a little down by saying that,
By that,
for
yeah,
a job very well done, to say that, tactics were not right, and,
But
we corrected
we,
them.
we revived the tactics the
Ah,
next
so,
day
so
and,
you're trying
carried
to
out
say that
like.
you're trying to say that the Air Force didn't know what they were doing. Yeah, not fair.
But ultimately, in a military operation, the wins or losses actually does not count.
Yeah, it
As
doesn't.
long as the government is able to achieve their political aim and the desired end state.
Yeah.
To what extent did we achieve the aim or the desired end state is again a matter of perception. Probably in the government establishment where they have more inputs on on every from all over, from the intelligence side, from the from the military side, from the diplomatic side, they would have thought that this is the whatever we uh, planned out was achieved.
Yeah, very true. And I do hope that our this brief chit chat on Operation Sindoor will declutter some of the doubts that people may have had. We are a non-government view. We are a we don't get any support from any media house that we have to play their line. So we are just talking like two men who have been in uniform at some stage and who understand more than what a lot of people in India do not understand, and have tried to convey that. And so this was our first in a series of these kind of.
Before you conclude, Kapil, one point which I want to highlight, as proved during the Bombay attacks, and even now, uh, I've seen that the media management is a very weak area in
Mm.
our regard. We have to control media and have a complete media blackout during the operation. And whatever information which is required to be given to the public will be given through the press briefing of the Ministry of External Affairs and the Ministry of Defense. We do not want any kind of, I don't think it is right to have different war games being played out in the media studios with a bunch of veterans and, both from the military veterans and old ex-bureaucrats giving in their viewpoint. And it actually confuses the public in one way because the official briefing is something, but whatever is, being discussed in the media is totally different. Even the one example was the attack on Karachi Harbour, which was overplayed by the media channels, which did not take place. So media management continues to be a weak area as far as India is concerned. And this is something which we need to rectify ASAP
I
before the
think
next operation.
some years ago, I attended a course at one of the very renowned media institutes in New Delhi, where the course was called Media Management Course for Senior Officers. And the first issue that was brought out by the media people over there who were lecturing us, they said that there is no such thing as media management, because media management means you are managing the media, and so that course should be renamed as something else. But at the end of the day, when we finished, there was no conclusive suggestion as to what it should be called, and it continues to be called Media Management Course for Senior Officers. And it is very unfortunate that despite so many senior officers attending this brief kind of a course in this institute, we just don't seem to learn. And on that note, I think we can call off this talk, and we hope that people will listen to it and like it, and we will continue our endeavors to provide you the decluttering of the strategic space with various topics as they come up week after week. Thank you very much. Thank you, Venu.
Thank you, Kapil. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being with you.